guys, welcome back to Ethereal Orb. I am Megan, and today I'm doing my how to mix your paints for acrylic pouring. I have had quite a few requests lately to do that, and I kind of have been avoiding it for a long time because I thought, what could I bring to the table that's, not already out there? And I kind of have a new way to sort of test your fluidity of your paints. So I thought now would be a great time to do that and share that with you. For all those of you that are new and still trying to figure it out, and maybe for some of you that aren't getting the results that you would like and you're trying to figure out if you have the right paint consistency. So I'm going to be doing two different paints. This is a mix of Nova Color. I had a specific request to mix Nova Color, so I wanted to make sure I used a Nova Color paint. This is Nova Color, but I mixed it two different colors. I mixed a magenta and did I use the? No, I used magenta and I used cerulean blue hue. I love that name. For this really, really pretty purple. So this is Nova Color, and it is very thick. As you can see, it's a heavy body. And this is also going to be somewhat similar to your basics, Liquitex Basics and Master's Touch tube paints. It's a bit thicker than the basics, but it's going to be somewhat close. And then I wanted to do a thinner craft paint because these do seem to be, some of them are thinner than others. I will say that. This is a metallic and they are usually thin. The neons seem to be the thinnest of the group. But I wanted to show you sort of two different types of paint so that whichever one you use, you will feel comfortable with. So I'm going to be mixing today with Basics Matte Fluid Medium and Floetrol. I have it already pre-mixed, and it's about 1 part Basics to probably about 3 parts Floetrol. I sometimes just use this, and I sometimes just use Floetrol. And for those of you who haven't started and picked a medium, the reason I use Floetrol is because I have found that when I'm mixing with Floetrol, whether I use a lot of paint and a little bit of Floetrol or this Basics, or I use quite a bit of the medium, did I say that the first time? Quite a bit of paint with a little bit of medium, or quite a bit of medium with a little bit of paint, my results are the same. I don't have to worry about ratios. When I used Nova Colors medium, I had to be careful that I didn't use too much of the medium. Because it had a very short open time. And with PVA glue, I did PVA glue for a very short time because that was more unpredictable for me as well. I know a lot of people like PVA glue, so if that's you and it works for you, great. It did not work for me. So that's why I really like this and the Floetrol. I can tailor it to whatever I need. I don't have to worry about measuring or weighing or any of that stuff. Plus, if I have just a little bit of paint left, I can use the little bit of paint that I have left and fill it up with Floetrol so I have enough for the painting. So that's why I use that mix. And I really, really like this. It's very fluid. It's more fluid than the Floetrol. So using it by itself is really nice. It's more expensive, obviously. It's $9.99 for 8.7 ounces. So otherwise I wouldn't have a problem with using this by itself. Okay, so that was just the quick why I use what I use. So I'm just going to plop a little bit of this in here. And I'm just going to show you how I do it. I'm going to mix exactly how I would mix if it were just me and no camera. Except I don't talk to myself when there's no camera. Well, maybe sometimes I do. But I don't make a habit of talking to myself. Certainly I don't talk to myself like there's somebody there. Okay, so there's my paint. And here is my mix. I put it in a little coffee creamer thing. I'm going to give it a little shake. And then, because I'm using something I don't have to worry about measuring, There we go. I will say when I'm not worried about how much paint I have, I usually do probably close to 50-50 paint and Floetrol. But like I said, if I'm running out of paint color and I want to use it, I use a lot more Floetrol than that. So, and then I don't add any water to my medium. I like to control the amount of water I use because I'm going to use a lot more water for this one than I will for this one. So if I had my medium already watered down a little bit, it might work for this and it'd be too runny for this, or it might work for this and I'd have to add more water anyway. So I just like to control it at the end. Okay, so before I add any water, I will share with you, because, you know, you can watch all the videos you want of people drizzling paint into a cup, and that's great, but it's kind of a hard visual to see because it doesn't look that much different. So I kind of wanted to show you, I don't know if you've ever made custard before. If you've made cream puffs, you've made custard. I've been making myself hungry for cream puffs as I've been preparing for this video. But anyway, if you've made custard, you know that when you're trying to figure out how thick you need it to be, and you're learning the consistency, because that's a learning process too, of how thick it needs to be for the custard to set up, you know that when you dip your spoon in, you want your finger, if you put your finger on the back of the spoon, you don't want the custard to run back in. That's how you know the custard is ready. Thick enough. So we're going to use that theory on this. So let me get some paint on the stick. This has no water in it, so I'm going to show you. And if I put my finger through it, oh, you probably can't see because there's a lot of paint. Okay, there you can. I put my finger through it and there's absolutely no movement. It's just staying put. That's too thick. So we're going to add some water. And if it would run back completely all the way back together, it's too runny. So we're looking for a happy medium of that paint to be fluid enough to where it starts running back together, but it doesn't, you know, actually shows that there was a finger mark there. If it runs all the way back together and it doesn't even look like you tried to leave a mark, it's too runny. So we want just a happy medium of that paint starting to run back together. And I'll try and get it right in the light. Or maybe I'll grab, I wanted to use new sticks. I don't have a lot of sticks that I would use, just to make it easier to see. Do I have another thick one that I haven't used? Because I reuse my sticks and everything like crazy. Well, this one is clean on one side, so when I go to try it again, I'll use that one. And part of it is, you know, once you have the consistency down and you've done it a few times, then you won't need to you know, run your finger through it. But when you're just starting out, it is helpful. Okay, and I have a couple little extras I'll add at the end after I'm done mixing to share with you. Okay, so that's a bit more fluid, so let's give that a try. Let's take this one out just for a second. I'll dip this one in, and I'll run my finger through it, get it right in that light. Let's see. It's still staying pretty separate, so I'm going to add, and keep this as clean as possible. I'm going to add a little bit more water. And I add my water a little bit at a time. I do not, even when I know I'm going to need quite a bit, I just find it easier to mix. If you dump a bunch of water in there at once, I don't know, it seems to take longer, and mixing. That's just a personal preference though. Okay, that feels closer. Okay, I'm going to try not to drip this all over everything. Okay, so let's run my finger through it. Okay, can you see that? It's running back together just a little bit. I hope you can see that. I don't think you can. Maybe the green will be easier to see. I thought the dark purple would be good. There, I think you can see it a little bit. Maybe I'll try and do a slow-mo. But that's definitely, you can see it's more narrow than my finger. Boop-a-doop-a-doop. There we go. But it's not running together completely. You can still see there's a finger mark there. And that is exactly what you want. You want it to start coming back together, but you want a little bit of a mark there. So that's exactly how we want it. Now, if I'm adding silicone, this is when I would add my silicone. This is Spot On Treadmill Belt Lubricant. And for this amount, I'll use 3 drops. And I mix. I'm not one of, I know some people say mix a little bit for big cells, mix a lot for small cells. I haven't found that to be the case, so. And I can't seem to just mix a little bit. For some reason that drives me nuts. Okay, so there's the thicker one, and then here's the, this is a neat, I love mixing metallics because they kind of come together really nicely. They mix really weird at first, and then all of a sudden they get silky and beautiful again. So as you can see, it's a lot more runny. I don't have to scoop it. Okay, so there's that. I'll get my Floetrol and Basics mix. About 50-50 or so. Like I said, I don't measure. If you like to measure, if you're one of those people, that's fine. But like I said, you can't really make a well, I will say, if you use all basics, they are all exactly the same. So you can go through every color of basics and have an exact ratio because they're all the same. Oh, but look at this. See, this is almost without even any water. Let me run my finger through it. Yeah, this one you can see a lot better. See, that's almost just right. It starts coming back together just a little bit. I want it to run just a hair bit more, so I'm going to add just a little bit of water. So there you can see, if I had a ratio, if I added the same amount of water to this one as that one, this would be way, way, way too runny. And craft paints especially really, really vary. Some of them are more like a heavy body. Some of them I really have to squeeze out of the tube, and some of them are runnier. Okay, so let's give this another try. And that is just about perfect. See how narrow that band is? Let's do that one more time. Let's not use my middle finger. There we go. You can see that that runs back together a little bit. I'm going to add just a hair bit more water, just a touch. There we go. I want it to run just a little bit more. Make sure I scrape my stick, especially since I'm testing. Oh, I love mixing metallics. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that. Oh, okay. There is a clump in there. Let's put that off to the side. Okay, so here we go. Oh, not my middle finger. That's not very nice. There you go. You can see it going back together. It's harder to see. There we go. Scrape again. See, it just starts to go back. And that is, you know what, just a teensy bit more. For some reason I'm just feeling a little resistance when I stir, more so than I want to. There we go. I think you can feel it when you stir it. There's a lot less resistance when you have it just right. Okay, so let's do it again. Make sure it's not too runny. There we go. I don't know if it's picking up the movement on here. Let me see how close I can get without making a terrible mess. Focus. Okay. There, it showed it a little bit more. Sorry, it went out of focus, but you can see really well right there. That's perfect. It came back together, but not all the way. Left a really thin band. Let me mix some. Let me find a tiny little cup. And I'll add a little bit more water to just a little bit of this. And we'll see what it looks like when it's too runny. Not that you guys can't figure that out, but... So, we put some on the stick here. Doop. Put my finger through it. And there. See, you can't even tell, hardly at all, that my finger was even there. Focus. There we go. See, it went completely back together. So, happy medium. You want it to move, but you don't want it to move all the way back together. So I think that should be helpful to some of you that have been having a hard time with the, calling it, you know, like melted ice cream or cream, if you've been having trouble kind of visualizing that. And there really is a very fine line between too thick, too thin, and just right. Baker Boo actually has a really, Baker Boo Paints is what her name is on YouTube. Sarah, she has a great Goldilocks mixing video where she has a too thin mix, a too thick mix, and a just right mix, and she does 3 pours. I'll link to it in the description bar because that is actually a really, really great video to show you if you want cells. Now, I'm going to pause just for a second. I'm going to show you some examples. Okay. So the mixes I just did are an example of the consistency you want if you want cells. This is not my prettiest, but it's a great example of the larger cells. I did a ribbon pour over it, but you can see here in the corner, this one had some large cells right there. You can see, and this was this mix with, I think this one either had Biolage hair serum or treadmill belt lubricant. They both work really well, just a few drops. But let's say you don't want cells. Not everybody wants cells. If you do, this is a great consistency. But this was one in particular that I did not want cells on. I was doing a ribbon pour, and I wanted lines and not cells. If you want a pour where your paints are not going to mix and you're not going to get cells, for one, leave the lubricant out. But also mix your paint just a little bit thicker so that it's pourable, obviously, but you don't want them coming back together. You're going to want more of that custardy. You run your finger through it and it stays separate. Then you will have more of this. So if it's important to you to do a pour where your colors are not bleeding into each other or creating cells, I'll show you another example real fast. This was done with Nova Color, and I wanted, let me turn that around. I wanted this effect right here of these really soft, look, there's Old Man Winter showed up. Really soft, kind of wavy feel without cells, and without, it has a little bit of bleeding, but not a ton of bleeding. So for this one, I mixed it thicker. This is more of a custardy, pourable, but custardy, and I don't mean like chilled and set custard. I mean warm custard, like I showed you, where you can run your finger through it and it barely moves. Yeah, obviously a chilled custard is going to be more like a heavy body paint, but anyway, so there are times when you will want it thicker. If you are looking for those big cells, however, you want it like this. So that is my tip on how to mix and how to test your mix. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comments. I will answer every single one of them. You can join my group, Fluid Art Fanatics, if you need some extra help or advice. A great tip is if you join one of the groups, you can always do lives and say, I'm having trouble mixing, or I'm having trouble with this. And, you know, if you say, I'm willing to do a live and get some feedback, people are great in the groups about watching those and helping out. So, anyway, I think that's it. I think I covered it all. If I did not, ask away, and like I said, I will answer all those questions. I'm going to do a pour real quick with my pretty colors. I'm going to add 2 drops of silicone while I'm thinking about it, though. Oh, that kind of came out a bit fast. That's probably more like 3 or 4 drops. Okay, but, oh, one more little look at the metallic just because they're so pretty. Okay, so anyway, we will see you next time, guys. As always, happy pouring.